Welcome to the 46th Annual Mill Valley Film Festival. My name is Joanne. I'm the Director of Education for the California Film Institute. We are the organization that runs this festival. We also run this theater year-round. We're really happy to have you guys here. Thanks for your patience while we got everyone in the house. I know there was a ton of traffic out there today, and we're just really thrilled that you guys could all be here for our screening of Fancy Dance. Apparently, I'm going to do this in the dark now. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Dan's hiding in the booth. You can wave Dan if you want. He's the one making it possible for there to be a movie on screen today. There's actually a few others I'd like to thank who make it possible for a movie to be on screen today for you guys, for you to be here for free as part of our MVFF Education program. We have a bunch of different sponsors and supporters that make that possible. We do year-round education programs, but during Mill Valley Film Festival, we have I think this year we have about 2,300 students coming to a bunch of different screenings. This is our last day of school screenings, and I just want to thank our supporters that make that possible, which include the Marin Community Foundation, Project Number 9, and the Nancy P. and Richard K. Robbins Family Foundation. If we could just give a bit of an applause for our sponsors. I'd also love to thank a few other people in the room here, which are your teachers who made it possible for you guys to be here on a school day to come and see an amazing movie. So huge thanks to them. So today's film, Fancy Dance, this is an amazing film, premiered at Sundance earlier this year. We're really thrilled to have it. I don't know, have any of you guys been watching Reservation Dogs on Hulu? A series about Indigenous teens in Oklahoma trying to get to California, actually. Erica Tremblay, the director of this film, actually directs a good portion of those episodes, and is also a Native American filmmaker, really incredibly talented. And this film also stars, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lily Gladstone. She's in the upcoming Killers of the Flower Moon that Martin Scorsese did with Leonardo DiCaprio, but she's done a ton of other really beautiful films. We had a film of hers in the festival last year called The Unknown Country. But this story focuses also on a teen, a native teen, and whose mother disappears, and Lily Gladstone plays her aunt, and it's just a really beautiful story of their relationship, but also really kind of gets into the whole, the issue and the tragic issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. That's kind of the backbone of and sort of the underpinning of this story. So there's a lot to dig into here. We're expecting Erica to be here for Q&A afterwards. So I hope you guys can stick around for at least part of that, if not all. I know some of you have a hard out, but we're going to do our best to have a decent conversation with Erica. So please enjoy the film. Stick around for that Q&A. And again, thanks so much for joining us for the festival. It's great to have you here. Take care. Thanks for your patience, you guys. I'm glad some of you were able to get some concessions, take a little break. I'm so thrilled to welcome the director, Erica Tremblay. So, Erica, thank you, first of all, for this beautiful, beautiful movie. I know these guys loved it. It was my second and a half time I've seen it. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of balance in the script, the narrative and like the dramatic elements and sticking to the story while also having the framework of, the issue around missing and murdered Indigenous women, and kind of how you balance those two so that the trauma didn't really drag down the script, but really sort of supported it.
Yeah, sure. Well, Scanot Swagwego on the Wayastet Nigiaso. So excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for watching the film. It means a lot when we get to connect with audiences. I'm a member of the Seneca Cayuga Nation. I grew up in Oklahoma and Southwest Missouri, come from my community. This film, was really brought about. My co-writer, Michiana Elise, who's a Tlingit screenwriter, we came together and we wanted to write a story that was grounded in love and joy and celebration of community, but we also wanted to have conversations about kind of the everyday oppressive systems that are present in our communities. And so one of the things that we set out to do was talk about issues that are important, but not have it be like a procedural film, and also not have it be like trauma porn. We touch on the Indian Child Welfare Act and forced removal of Native kids, and we talk about MMIR, and we have conversations around jurisdictional issues and how all of those things create a kind of a festering violence that exists in these communities. But we made a choice very early on that this wouldn't be a story where you would ever see a dead body. We weren't going to linger on the violent like the violence of what may have happened to Tawi. We weren't going to discuss that for better or for worse. A lot of people criticize that about the film, but that wasn't what we set out to make. We wanted to have a conversation around an aunt and a niece and how their matrilineal connection helped them survive what was happening around them.
That was a beautiful question. I'd really love for you guys to be able to ask some questions because, such a great opportunity.
Bright,
I know. We can also step out in here
I can see
so that we're a little closer. Do you guys have some questions you want to ask Erica? Yeah.
So with the way the movie ended, are you setting it up like a sequel? Or like no offense, but it felt like a very abrupt ending to me.
Yeah, so we assume that the wheels of corrupt justice are going to continue spinning after this film, and likely, Jax will be arrested. Likely, Roki will have some consequences and will likely end up back with the grandparents. But instead of going further and looking at those pieces of it, we wanted to end on a moment of them connecting and on a moment of their sharing joy together and recognizing that despite what will happen when the credits roll, that they're going to be okay. Roki's always going to recognize her culture is important. She's going to have had some closure with getting to dance for her mother. They will reunite at some point in the future. And we didn't want to go to the dark place. We wanted to end on the bright place.
Yeah, we'll go there and then you. Yeah.
What was the process like choosing when to use the native language? Was there specific reasons on why you decided to have some dialogue in that specific language?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this film came about while I was doing a 3-year-long language immersion program in Cayuga, which is my Indigenous language. There are less than 20 speakers of the language left. It's considered extinct. Part of what I was inspired to do with this was imagine a modern day setting where young people spoke the language fluently, which is not currently the case. There are a lot of revitalization efforts happening. I did a 3-year-long, 8-hour-a-day program, and I'm still a language learner and will be for the rest of my life. But most of the people who were in my cohort, the other 8 learners, are all teachers, and I just wouldn't be a great teacher. And I was like, but the thing that I do is I make films and I make media. And so I thought part of what my role could be in language revitalization was to have the language be present in a film. So while I was doing my immersion program, we were in the language for 8 hours a day. And as we got better at speaking, we would be out and about in public places and we would be popping back and forth from Cayuga to English depending on if we couldn't find the word or what we were talking about, or sometimes we would weaponize it against Karens that were in our vicinity because they couldn't understand what we were saying. And so we kind of wanted to bring in all of that to this film. They use it oftentimes when they're really trying to convey sincere emotion. They're using it when they don't want other people to know what they're saying. And I'm really excited because next week we're screening the film in Toronto, which is about 45 minutes from the school I went to. And many of the last remaining elder speakers of the language are going to get to come and see the film in the theater. And it will be the first time in their lives, and we're talking people who are in their 80s and 90s, it'll be the first time in their entire lives that they will see their language in a film. So, yeah, it was a huge inspiration for the film, and it remains to be the thing I talk a lot about because I'm so passionate about revitalization.
Thanks for that. We had a question over there.
Like most about this film?
Sorry,
What did
you enjoy most about all this film?
About making the film or just even the story? Yeah.
Well, I love your hat face thing. It's awesome, and it makes a major statement, and I really, really appreciate it and respect it. So what I liked about the story, I guess I'll start with that piece first, is just the chance to explore queer, Indigenous, matrilineal, love, and seeing characters up on the screen that I have never really seen and have gotten to see. I'm a writer and director on the television show Reservation Dogs, and I also write on the series Dark Winds. And so it's been, I'm a 42-year-old woman, and it's been my whole life of wanting to be in this industry and wanting to do this job and like struggling to find a way to break in. Also struggling to find financiers or people who are on the other side that are interested in telling Indigenous stories, interested in telling queer stories, interested in telling stories about women. And so for me, what was really, when I watch this film and I see all of its flaws and I see all the things I would do differently, because that's how we are as artists, but I really love the fact that I get to see two Indigenous women on the screen going about their lives and doing their thing, which oftentimes we struggle to find that representation. So I love that part. I think my favorite part of the film is when Roki like bleeds on the cop car and like uses her minces as a weapon. Like that, to me, every time I watch that, I'm just like, how did that come out of my mind? I'm so proud. And then my favorite part of the execution of making the film itself was getting to film in Oklahoma, largely on Cherokee Nation land. And our crew was made up of so many incredible, creative, Indigenous folks. And the process, whether it's in Res Dogs or Dark Winds or this film, the process of getting to come together with other Native American creators and make something that we all feel passionate about is a true gift when you look at like this like 40 years of wishing to be a part of this and never really feeling like I like had a space or a place.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, what was the kind of relationship that grandparents were wanting for Lori to like not to be rude or anything, like whitewash her or something, or just to have her identity, but also put her in a different area in that kind of situation?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So my mom's Native, my dad is white. I'm based a lot of these grandparent characters after my real life grandparents. It's not a biographical film in any way, but there was always this kind of threat that the white family had this weird access to us, and there was always this fear that if my dad took things too far, he could potentially like remove us from our community. And despite the fact that he was like a serial perpetrator, the courts would always side with him in that instance because my mom is a small brown woman, and there was this power dynamic that was always at play, and always this like very like low-key fear that we may potentially get removed from what we knew and what we loved, my sister and I. And so I think that we didn't want to just have like shitty white people, because I think that's like really easy trope to fall into. Like at the core, I think that Frank and Nancy truly believe that they're the better place for this kid to be. And on paper, it's hard to make a decision, right? It's a gray area. I wanted Towie to be a sex worker. I wanted Jax to be a criminal. I didn't want it to be just this cut and dry thing, because like everyone deserves to be found regardless of what your job is and how you make money. And all kids belong with their families and in their culture. And so we wanted it to be a little bit of be like, well, should she stay with the grandparents or should she go with Jax? Jax isn't necessarily making all of the best choices, but ultimately, regardless of their best intentions, they do want to whitewash her. They want her to have parts of her culture, but not if it interferes with Rotary Club or interferes with like how their community sees them. And it's a very subtle conversation, but it's one that's very much rooted in residential schools and boarding schools when natives were forcibly removed from their communities and forced to cut their hair, punished when they spoke their language. We still feel the reverberations of that. And us who are in mixed race families recognize that dynamic very clearly when we look at the different sides of our families.
Question. Yeah.
When did you realize you wanted to make this film?
Yeah, so I made a short film with Lily Gladstone that premiered at Sundance in 2020. And that was kind of how things broke open for me. I got reps, which my rep's sitting back there. You made it. I was worried about you this whole time. That's my manager. So after making that film, the reception of that film, you know, there's all these gatekeepers, right, that like keep you kind of outside from the industry. Some of those gatekeepers are reps. They're your agent and your manager, and they're the ones that go out and negotiate jobs for you. There's the studios, there's all these people, and like you need to kind of get in there somehow, and you got to get their attention. And so this short film that I made called Little Chief, you can find it on YouTube, starring Lily Gladstone. It's 12 minutes long.
So good.
That cracked open a little space for me to like wave and say, hey, pay attention to me. I want to come make stuff. And obviously Lily Gladstone's going to be nominated for an Oscar for Killers of the Flower Moon. She's probably going to win. She's going to win. And she's just so incredibly talented and generous. After the success of that short film, I said, clearly people are interested in this world. It was also set on the reservation with a character similar to Jax. And I said, I don't want to make a continuation of the short film, but what if we make a different film based on similar characters in the same world? And I was studying language, and we were learning family words, and the word for mother's knoha, and the word for your mother's sister, your aunt, is knoha'a. And it clicked to me. I was like, I want to make a story about an aunt and a niece based in the matrilineal construct that's so beautifully being expressed in the language that's kind of been stunted by colonialism and the patriarchy. It's still alive when you look at these, you know, hundreds and thousands of year old words. And so that's how we endeavored to make the film. It was during the pandemic. I got an outline done. I started writing pages. I was feeling very lonely. I don't know if any of you are artists or writers, but it's a terrible, terrible process. Writing is so painful. And I called Michiana up and I said, hey, I don't want to do this alone. I would love to do this with another Indigenous woman. Would you come on board? And so she said yes.
Yeah.
Was there any like meaning or any intention behind having them dance at the end with their non-traditional clothes? Because we were talking about it, and for me, like I felt like it was kind of like a meaning towards like how colonizers like took something from them, and they were still wearing parts of the culture, like rape or but it was still colonized. So I don't know if that was intention or just wanted to do continuation from the clothes.
Yeah, beautiful observation. And yes, so early on, we received a note that Tawi wasn't present enough in the script as it stood. And so we thought about it, and I thought, oh, what if because we already had the kokum scarf that Jax carries with her and wears all the time. We assume that it's her mother's, it's a very important, like, cultural artifact. And so I was like, we need to set something up like that for Roki. And I used to be a dancer, and I used to dance in clubs, and I had this like cowgirl thing, I don't know, and it had a jacket with the fringe. And I remember it being a really weird thing to like participate in while I was doing it. And it was like this cow. And there was, in my mind, there was like lots of feminism happening and conversations I was having with myself about what it meant to co-opt this kind of like cowboy Indian motif. And I was like, what if that's what Tawi wears? And what if it's this, and purple is kind of our nation's color, and it's the color of the Haudenosaunee flag, the Hiawatha flag. And so I was like, what if she finds this jacket and it resembles, right, all of those powwow, the powwow regalia, but it's not quite. And I think that it was a statement that we were making, that despite everything that had been taken from these women, land, resources, their mother and sister, that they knew that what really mattered was their connection with each other and their celebration of Taui's life, and that the regalia didn't matter as much as what their hearts were saying to each other and what their hearts were saying to Taui on her journey on the other side. And so we wanted to have the beautiful dancers in all of their regalia, and then to have Roki and Taui have small pieces of that present as they did their dance in their civilian clothes.
We have time for one more question, yeah.
It's you. It's all you.
I really like the score, and I was asking what was the process of that, like for this film.
Yeah, so the score is done by this incredible Indigenous artist, and she does a lot of vocal variations and using like vocal sounds in a percussive way. And so I sent her very early on some Haudenosaunee seed songs. In my culture, women are the farmers, women are the horticulturists and the scientists, and part of their process in cultivating the fields is their prayers and their songs. And I thought that that would be a really beautiful motif to have Samantha Crane, who did the music, to have her ground the score in these seed songs. Because essentially what Jax and Roki are doing are growing, right, throughout the film. They're growing as individuals, they're growing as a unit, as a duo. We have the coming of age story as Roki's growing into her womanhood. And so that was the cornerstone, were those seed songs. And then Samantha kind of took that and ran with it. So you could check her out. She's got she does kind of folksy indie music as well that sounds a lot different than this, but she's incredibly amazing. She does music for Reservation Dogs as well. So I got to work with her again there.
Yeah, go ahead, Sudesh, yeah.
These are all young filmmakers here who are studying film. What advice would you give them as young people on their journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to see you all sitting here, and your vibrant, beautiful, auras are radiating at me. So thank you so much for just being here and having this conversation with me. It's inspiring to me to see you all here. I want to see your stories. I want to know what you have to say. I think that my biggest piece of advice, and I continue to give this to myself, is just keep putting it out there. Keep writing, keep drawing, keep making. Whatever it is that you have, like when I was working in advertising, which was the last place on earth I wanted to be, I was making doc films on the weekend. I didn't never want to be a doc filmmaker, but buying a camera and finding a subject to shoot was accessible to me. Find what's accessible to you and just keep pushing forward. And regardless of whether you ever make it to Hollywood, whatever that even means, every single person's story is important, and it's worthy, whether it ends up on TV or doesn't. Like Sterling Harjo, who's the showrunner of Reservation Dogs, made 4 feature films that never saw the light of day. But he kept pushing and kept going because he knew that his stories were important, and he knew that maybe someday someone would see them, or just the act of making them was important and necessary enough. And then I think the biggest thing I would say is to find community. Find the people in this room that are doing the same thing that you are. Donate your time to come and hold a light for them while they shoot a short film on the weekend, and then they'll come and do the same for you. And just find inspiration in each other and make things together. And, being supportive of other people's creative prowess is probably the best thing you can possibly do to inspire your own. And so you guys have a lot of amazing opportunities here to work with each other and support each other in your crafts. You can find me on Instagram or whatever, Erica J. Tremblay. I'm always available and open as I have time. If you ever have any questions or you're interested in asking a question or whatever, you can send me a message there. And I'm cheering for you so hard and can't wait to see what you make.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you guys for being such an awesome audience and for your great questions. Thanks so much, Erica, for being here. Thanks for coming, you guys.